The work I make is on the wheel and I use porcelain, so mostly fairly kind of classic sort of forms. When I'm making a moon jar, I throw it in 2 sections, and throw it on a bat, so around about 5 kilos and 4 kilos. To centre a large sort of 5 kilo lump of clay, it involves using more than just your arms. You kind of use a lot of your body, so we're kind of really focus on trying to using the edges of my hands to kind of cone up and push down, and concentrate on trying to get it as centred as possible. It just makes the next stage and the next stage much easier if you can get the early stages right. So yes, open up usually using a fess. I use plenty of water, making sure that I've got a good thickness in the base. So when I'm pulling the clay up, I tend to initially use my hands inside and out. I try to get my thumb around the rim, so that helps to control the rim shape. So once I've got the height and I want to start bringing it out, I need to try and open up the rim early on and gradually work, push the inside out towards the rim. So it's a kind of, in stages, just work in stages of bringing the rim out a little bit, bringing the whole bowl out to meet the rim until eventually I have the kind of diameter that I'm looking for. So once I've got I think that I've got the width that I want, then I'll make sure that I measure it accurately with the calipers, so that I can then use the calipers on the top section to compare widths. When I throw the top section, I use slightly less clay, so the bottom section would be 5 kilos, the top section about 4. The reason being is I throw it bottomless, so there's less clay needed. So again, same thing, centre it in exactly the same way, but before I pull the shape up, I go straight down until I feel the base, and then pull out the bottom so that I've got about a 3-inch diameter hole at the bottom, and then just continue throwing the height and then start opening up in the same way as I did for the base. When I'm approaching the right sort of diameter, I'll use the calipers to check and get it to match the bottom section. Normally I leave depending on the weather, I guess. So until they're a little bit firmer, usually overnight. So what I then do is use a craft knife to score the rim in a kind of cross-hatch kind of pattern. Both the base one, which I centre on the wheel first of all, and then the top section. And then I add slip to both rims, and then when I've done that, I'll then pick up the top section of the moon jar and flip it round, and hopefully it will fit. But if there's plenty of slip, if I put plenty of slip on, then there's a little bit of give and a little bit of movement that I can wiggle it into place. And then once it's wiggled in place, I'll kind of tidy up the excess slip on the outside and do what I can in terms of tidying up on the outside. And then once I'm happy that it's in place, I will get a long thin pin and just pierce a little hole through the clay at the top section of the moon jar, just under the bat, just to allow air to escape so that the airlock doesn't exist anymore, so that it kind of makes a better bond. And then usually I'll leave it a little while just to kind of, to make that bond a little bit stronger. And then I then use a craft knife to cut the bat off of the top section of the moon jar. Well, I usually make a groove with it first and then cut it off with a wire. And then I'm able to get into the inside of the moon jar. So once I'm happy that it's all joined, I will, with a sponge, re-moisten and soften the rim, and then continue to throw and finish off the rim. That usually involves throwing a little bit up and then taking a little bit off till I'm satisfied with the shape of the rim, and then just finish it off with a little kind of angle at the top. Once I finish the rim and I'm satisfied with the main shape of it, I'll let it firm up a little again, and then when it's leather hard, I'm able to cut it off the bat and return the pot to the wheel, and just tidy up the thrown rim section, just maybe with a little bit of trimming, just tidy it up and using trimming tools and metal kidneys, metal ribs. The last stage would be then to turn it on its rim on a chuck on the wheel. So I've got a kind of ready-made leather hard chuck that I centre on the wheel, which I can then upturn the moon jar and have it sitting in there while I trim and tidy up the base of the pot. I quite like to leave a fairly deep sort of foot ring at the base. I quite like the foot ring to kind of echo the shape of the rim, so it's a little bit of an angle in it, and also paying attention to the proportions of the foot ring to rim. I quite like to kind of explore that sort of balance. So once I'm finished and I'm quite happy with the shape, I'll put my little stamp on the centre of the foot ring and let it dry out. Try to let it dry out slowly and biscuit fire the pot. And then once it's biscuit fired, I apply the kind of the calligraphic brush mark decoration onto the surface, and trying to keep a kind of controlled, spontaneous mark on the surface. And then I dip the whole pot into a transparent glaze. And then once it's dipped in the transparent glaze, I clear the rim of the glaze and sponge it off, and then paint some of the oxide wash onto the rim, so the rim has a nice kind of bronzy kind of finish. So when I'm kind of thinking about what I make and how I make it, I'm aware that I'm inclined to be fairly precise in my making methods. So, I guess the kind of approach to decoration was as a kind of way of balancing that a little bit, and giving a bit of contrast to sort of, offer a bit of freedom in the decoration, so as a contrast to the kind of the precision of the forms.